Hello everyone and welcome to Retail Archaeology. Today we'll be taking a look at Dobson Ranch Inn, or at least we'll start by taking a look at what's left of it. This is what it looks like as of September 2020. Now I know resorts aren't something I normally cover on this channel, however this one is fairly historic, and also I grew up driving by it all the time as a kid and I always wanted to come here because it just looked like this big, awesome, fancy resort. It opened in 1979 as a Best Western property, and it was originally kind of purpose-built to serve as the spring training home for the Chicago Cubs. Back when this place opened, the Cactus League, which is Major League Baseball's spring training league here in Arizona, was starting to get pretty big, and the major league teams were looking for resort-style properties to stay at while they were here in town. And also a lot of fans flocked to resorts like this one to catch the spring training games and see their favorite players. When it was announced in September of 2019 that this place would be closing permanently, I decided it would be a good idea to come film it. So let's go back to September of 2019 and see what this place looked like before it was demolished, and the only thing out of service was that fire hydrant there. In the first shot of this video, there were just a couple of columns standing amongst a big pile of rubble. Well, now you can see those columns attached to an actual building. Besides serving as the spring training home for the Chicago Cubs, this resort also at one point was the spring training home for the Milwaukee Brewers. When this place opened in 1979, it was pretty common for the Major League Baseball players to stay at places like this during spring training. However, as the years went on, baseball players' contracts and salaries got bigger and bigger, and it became more common for them just to rent a home wherever it was they were doing spring training, or even buy a condo. Even though they eventually lost the moniker as the official spring training home for the Cubs and for the Brewers, that didn't really seem to kill the hotel. There was still a lot of business travel that went on here, and there was also still a lot of fans that stayed here for spring training because it's relatively close to where the Cubs actually train at. Things really seemed to start going downhill for this property in the mid-2000s when the Great Recession hit and a lot of personal and business travel ended. In 2008, the family that owned and operated this place since it was built saw the writing on the wall and decided it would be a good idea to sell the place, and that's what they did. I'm not entirely sure, but I believe that this place's Best Western affiliation ended in 2008 when it was sold. Now you may be asking yourself, why am I interested in this place when I normally cover things like dead malls and dying retail and stuff like that? Well, for a couple of reasons. One, I grew up as a huge Cubs fan and baseball fan, and like I mentioned earlier, we used to drive by this place all the time, and it was much nicer back then. And also, I don't know if you've noticed it, but just walking around this place and it being completely empty, it gives off very strong dead mall vibes. I get the same feelings here as I do when I'm walking around an empty mall. Now, even though it was announced in September 2019 that this place would be closing, and this was filmed shortly after that announcement, it was still technically in business. There just really was nobody here. We only counted a couple of cars in the huge parking lots of this place. This was a luxury resort when it opened in 1979, and you can kind of see the bones of that here. However, it's not really up to the modern standards of a luxury resort. It really was eerie just walking around this huge property and not running into anybody else at all. I think this was a clubhouse for the pool area, but I also don't think it's been used in years. Something else important to note about this property is that it's attached to the Dobson Ranch Master Plan Community, which was one of the first master plan communities in the area, and they started building it in 1973, and things were finally filled out with homes and everything by 1999. Once this property started its downward spiral, the people that lived in the Dobson Ranch community really started to complain about it. They said they saw a huge increase in crime and that there were just police here all the time. Now that the new owners have demolished this whole place, they plan on building a big new luxury apartment complex here. This area is towards the back of the property, and this is where the bigger suites were. I don't believe they were renting these out at this point. You can see things look a little bit more shabby over here. There's some lawn furniture strewn about. The grass doesn't look great. I'm sure they were nice when this place was jumping though. And it looks like they even had their own private spa back here for the suites, but it looks like it's been drained. We were going to rent a room just to see what it looked like, but I looked at pictures online and they didn't look very interesting. Also, they were at this point renting for $25, $30 a night, so who knows what goes on at this place at night, so I figured it would just be better to kind of show you some of the pictures I found in Google reviews. From the pictures I found, they look just like basic hotel rooms, not really luxury by today's standards. They look clean enough too from some of the pictures. They look just like any old Best Western or anything like that. But then I noticed I started seeing things like pictures of really worn out furniture and a lot of pictures of garbage piled up at various trash cans. So it looks like maintenance was really starting to become an issue here at the end. Speaking of dead mall energy, there's a couple of dead fountains here. I found some pictures from just a few years ago where these look like they were still working, but looking at them now, it looks like the sun and them not running and everything is really taking their toll on them. Looks like they've just filled them with rocks now, which I hate seeing that. But back in this resort's heyday, this must have been an amazing grand entrance with the two fountains going and everything looking new and shiny. It is nice to see that even though this place was in its last days at this point, that they were still maintaining the main pool and spa area pretty well. I mean, the water is nice and clear and everything looks pretty nice. From this shot, you can kind of get an idea of how big this place was. Look at all those palm trees. Now here's a shot from one of the edges of the property so you can just see the empty parking lot out there. Not very many cars at all. Like I said, at this point they were still renting rooms out, but it doesn't look like anybody was taking advantage of those cheap prices. It's the emptiest I've seen a hotel parking lot ever. This may look familiar if you watched my recent video on Monty's La Costa Vieja and Monty's at the Ranch, because this was the Monty's at the Ranch location. This little restaurant spot is attached to the resort. And this is what that same spot looks like today. If you want to see more footage of what this looked like before it was demolished, I would definitely recommend checking out my Monty's video. Now, like I mentioned, the place actually looked like it was in pretty good shape. The only issues that we saw that were pretty bad were once you got to the edges of the property. We noticed mattresses had been dragged out of some of the rooms around the edges through broken windows. And it looks like homeless people have just been kind of camping out in these spots. It's pretty quiet back here. I can see why this would be a good spot for that. It's really far away from the main road back here. And it doesn't look like very many people wander back this far. Right behind that wall is the US 60 freeway. So anybody camping out back here isn't going to be bothered by anybody on the other side of that wall. And we found this drainage ditch thing here also, and it was awful. The smell looks like it's been clogged, but it was really weird to see there was a board propped up there so somebody could climb in and out. I don't know why you would want to go down there. But as we poke around in the very back of the property, we can see more evidence of people camping out back here. There's more mattresses laid out. There's some cardboard boxes that are laid out to lay on. And there's even a little spot back here as well, another mattress, and there's a chair back here. This is all stuff that was taken from the resort and dragged back here. It's always really sad when we find stuff like this, but it's particularly sad at this location because this is a big, huge, empty hotel. It's literally set up to house a lot of people, and it's empty and not being used, and there's people around the edges of it, you know, camping out at night, sleeping in the elements. It's just, the dichotomy is kind of gross. As you can see down that long shot too, there's not many cars down there either, really just one here at the front. I think this car seat wins the award for weirdest thing I've seen thrown away at a hotel. Why would you throw a car seat away at a hotel? But if we kind of poke back around here a little bit further, we can see it looks like somebody's been camping out back here behind the dumpster as well. It's also interesting to see one of the doors from the resort just ripped off and thrown back here. I saw from the sign it's for one of the linen storage areas, so I'm sure that was ripped off, and things like sheets and pillows and stuff, and maybe even some of these mattresses were taken from that room. But now we're back to present day, and everything we just looked at is a pile of rubble now. It looks like the sun really has finally set on the Dobson Ranch Inn. As always, everyone, thanks for watching. Want to see your name here? Head on over to patreon.com/retailarchaeology to find out how you can help support the channel. Hey everyone, thanks for checking out my video on an old demolished resort in Mesa, Arizona. If you enjoyed it, make sure to hit those like and subscribe buttons, and also make sure to follow at the social media links down there because it's the best way to keep up with what's going on with the channel.